in just a few minutes. But first, we're being warned that farmers' mental health is getting worse. We've been hearing from farmers throughout the day here on BBC Radio Berkshire. This is Joe and Holly.
As farmers, we're very lucky. We got to go through lockdown with a large amount of space, unlike a lot of people who were cooped up in areas much smaller than us. So I think in that sense, we were very lucky. I think people forget that although it is isolating, that I think a lot of farmers are still very sociable people, whether that's going down to the pub after a day's work or going and seeing friends on days off. I think that was the hardest part of it, is you had that suddenly taken away from you. And a lot of us, where we work is also our home. So then you struggle with actually being able to switch off. So that's something I really struggled with.
You know, there's no constraints. You're not in an office. You're your own boss. So it certainly has its positives, but at the same time, it can be a very lonely job. And sometimes when you need another pair of hands, it's, then you're thinking, why have I done this? Most of the time, it's me on my own. Luckily, I have a good working dog as well, but you just become very practical. You become very self-reliant and incredibly independent. And, that will get you through the tough situations on the farm. But it does have a severe mental effect at the time. And also, it really affects your work-life balance.
That's what it's like for Joe and Holly, with many agricultural workers already feeling the pressure of Brexit and climate change. But the stress and isolation during COVID-19 has highlighted a lack of support, according to researchers from the University of Reading. Dr. David Rose led the research.
We found that the COVID-19 pandemic, plus all of the other current concerns, Brexit uncertainty, fuel and energy crises, was really just creating a perfect storm, if you like. And farmers were really being hit from all directions with all sorts of different pressures that was intensifying their mental health problems. It's a very, very difficult and tough job, but thank goodness we've got farmers that do it. I think in lockdown, when we saw supermarket shelves suddenly become empty, we all realised that farmers are the essential workers that none of us could do without. We all rely on a farmer 3 times a day when we want to eat something. But it's a very difficult job, long hours, dangerous conditions, and all those things out of the control of the farmer. So it's very, very difficult, but thank goodness we've got people prepared to do it.
Vicky Beckwith is from Berkshire College of Agriculture in Maidenhead. Evening to you there, Victoria.
Hello.
Let's start with what we've been hearing. How aware of these issues are you at the college?
We have seen an increase in the need for social and emotional support across all of our learners. Obviously, with the pandemic and them not being in school, it has been very difficult for them. But with regards to our agric students, they, in a way, as we've heard in those other clips, they've had a positive of being able to have outdoor space and having a purpose as a key worker. But on the other side of it, they haven't had any chance to rest. They've also don't really know how to interact with other people outside of that space. And so we as a college have had to put an awful lot of extra pastoral support in for our students to help them to cope with the changes of getting back to normal life and college courses.
Yes, we'll talk about that support in a moment, but looking at what the students are saying, as we heard from, I think it was Holly, I mean, it can be a very lonely job. You really do have to rely on your own wits, strength and guile, don't you?
Absolutely. And I think, a lot of people have forgotten that if a farmer is ill with COVID, they can't necessarily 100% self-isolate. They have to carry on. Those animals still need looking after. That milk still needs collecting. And so there's been the added pressure of them not being able to rest if they get COVID, as well as also continuing on during the whole pandemic as a key worker. It's been very difficult. They feel isolated because they haven't been able to socialise at the normal ploughing matches, the shows, all of those kind of events have been very difficult. But the farming community is also a fabulous thing. There's been a lot more Facebook groups coming up for people to talk about their worries and to try and help each other out that way.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you were talking about that sort of community, because they're busy doing their own things on their own farms, but there is a bond there, and you help support the students then as well, so that they not only understand what they've got to do on a farm, but also how they can make sure that they know all the useful people around them that can help make it the job they wanted it to be?
Absolutely. The farming community is very well linked. Most farmers do know each other, which is the plus side to it. But it's that actual face-to-face that everybody has been missing. Our students, like I say, have industry placement. They have links with farmers, and most of them have picked up that key worker role through most of COVID to keep themselves busy, but to also help the community and to give themselves a purpose.
It's interesting, isn't it? Especially with the big storms on the way. We've got Eunice coming on Friday. So if you're a farmer in this part of the world, it's certainly going to be one of those moments where, again, there's another stress, another thing that you've got to factor into your day and what you may be dealing with over the weekend. So looking at the future, what do you think could help them? Yes, you're offering support, but it's a real lifestyle, isn't it, farming?
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle, and you definitely have to endure the good and the bad all the way through. And I think that's why a lot of people do fall in love with it, because it keeps you on your toes, it keeps you busy. No 2 days are ever the same. But people need to remember that actually you also need to have an outlet to be able to talk about that, to be able to find other people that relate to that situation so you can talk through it, to listen to each other. There are organisations out there that are available to help. The NFU, Young Farmers, and the Farm Safety Foundation has a Mind Your Head week this week about mental health, and there's resources there. But it's not the same as going to a ploughing match and actually standing in the tea tent, having a cuppa, talking about how you're all going to get over this storm this weekend. The get-togethers are the bits that are needed. And, the farming community is very resilient, but they're also very, very quick to just get on with it. And then it's not until it gets to almost a breaking point or a crisis that then they don't know who to turn to. And that's where the worry is.
Really good to speak to you, Vicky. Thank you very much indeed. Vicky Beckwith there from Berkshire College of Agriculture in Maidenhead.